Can I start by thanking all of you for taking the trouble to once again pack a school hall in Kenmore. This is just great to see. I think when everyone's here, now's the time that we ought to be saying a big thank you to Penny and to Grant and Helen and the gang. Let's say thank you to all of you. I get ferociously optimistic when I see so many people who are so keen to see sensible things happening in their community. It's great to see so many of you. I think that this is a campaign that's picked up speed as it's continued. It's a campaign that the more people we talk to, the more people actually understand how incredibly stupid this road proposal is. I think you're doing a great job. I wanted to share this with you, and I'm really pleased the journalists aren't here, so I know all of you can keep a secret. And
trust me, there are no witnesses running.
In my younger days, I was in fact one of those people who used to, on behalf of the Wilderness Society, dress as a koala. We've had a heap of talk from both sides of the old Parliament. We've heard from the folk in main roads and in the government who say that this road is something that needs to happen. We've heard them say that this is a road that I in fact heard the Transport Minister say that he didn't understand, I'll paraphrase, he didn't understand what all the fuss was about because more or less there'd been a road corridor put aside for 20 years. What he didn't say was that there are folk who live on streets like Almeida Street in Indooroopilly. Now I make Almeida Street, as the crow flies, probably 1.5, but more likely 2 kilometres from any road reserve. There are folk on Almeida Street in Indooroopilly who've received letters from the Department of Main Roads saying, we need you home, 2 kilometres away from the road reserve. So do not for a second get caught up in this idea that you should feel in any way bad for opposing this road because people should have known. It's a completely fictional argument that the folk in main roads and the state government are putting forward. In terms of where the Liberal National Party opposition stands, I think that there's been plenty of talk today about where Bruce Flegg stands on this road. And on this road, Bruce has been, I guess you'd describe Bruce as a passionate advocate for the Kenmore Bypass. Bruce has been an advocate for this road from day one. And I think he's wrong. Not for the first time, I think Bruce is wrong. But what that means, and poses up, I think, an almost unique political problem. How do we stop a road when the government says they want to build it, and when the opposition says they want to build it? Well, I'm here to tell you that I know exactly how we can stop it. For the first time ever, we have a Green serving in the Queensland Parliament. And I'm looking at what's happening in every other state, the same as you are. And I can read the Courier Mail, and I can tell that the next state election will be the closest, hardest fought state election in the history of Queensland. You will see both the old parties carrying on the way they always do. Build a road here, build a road there. They won't talk about public transport. They won't talk about real solutions. But what I think is going to happen is I think there is every likelihood that the Greens could hold the balance of power in the next Queensland Parliament. And if that's the case, and it's just happened in the ACT, and if that's the case, I'll give you this commitment here today on behalf of the Queensland Greens. There will be no Kenmore Bypass. We will not stand with any political party that wants to build a bypass through Kenmore, destroying our community, not solving any transport problems, wrecking koala habitat. I mean, today was the first time I heard that there were swift parrots in this area. I mean, ferociously important. And we will not stand with any political party that will let that happen. So the message that I've got to you today is, you don't need to buy into what the Labor government would have you buy into, or what Bruce and the LNP would have you buy into, which is the idea that it's all hopeless, the idea that there's nothing you can do, the idea that, oh well, you know, if you turn back Bruce, all you're going to get's a Labor person who wants to build a road, and the road will happen, they have you believe. There is an alternative. It's making sure that there is a strong Green voice in the Queensland Parliament, and a voice with enough numbers to make sure that there is no Kenmore bypass. I'll be working to achieve that. I know that the other members of my political party will be working to achieve that. I'd encourage you to send that message to the other political parties too. We're going to stop this road. With your help, we will stop the road, we will save Kenmore, and we will save the koalas. Public transport in Brisbane, particularly Western Brisbane, is not good. And that is the issue. So proposing to build roads because people are stuck in traffic in their cars, all that actually proposes to do is to treat a symptom. It doesn't treat the root cause. So it's sort of like going to the doctor and saying, you know, I appear to be bleeding a little bit because I've been stabbed several times, and you know, the doctor puts a couple of band-aids on and says, well, this will deal with the bleeding for a little while. What we've got to do before we do anything else is in fact give Brisbane a public transport system that works. I've got a lot of sympathy for people who live in Belbowrie and drive their cars and get stuck in traffic every morning commuting to work. I actually have a lot of sympathy for them, because if you catch the bus from Belbowrie, you're stuck in the same traffic. It's the same problem. So there's a genuine disincentive. So government's put in place a disincentive for people to use public transport from Belbowrie. So of course there's a range of people who live out there who are really sort of, I think, conflicted about where they stand with these road proposals, because you know they're dealing with the outcomes of poor planning every day. And what I'm proposing and others is that we plough ahead with a better railway network, and that involves not just fixing railway stations but also buying more trains. No good saying to people, catch the train from Indooroopilly, if when they turn up they walk into their delightfully renovated railway station, they find that in fact the train's outrageously crowded. I mean, it might be just the days I catch the train that they're outrageously crowded, but the trains are outrageously crowded. The government's not buying enough trains. And Queensland Rail has transport planning modelling that says population will grow at, you know, in railway corridors at, you know, around, we'll say 12%. But their planning for increase in patronage on the network is about 5 to 6% below that. I mean, that's just stupid. There's no other way to describe that situation other than stupid. We ought to be looking at light rail. I mean, we ought to be seriously looking at light rail in Brisbane. It's non-intrusive. People actually like trams and light rail. They like them. Doesn't kill koalas. And you can actually move people very quickly in a very pleasant way, which removes the need for massive spending on roads. The benefit of that, I mean, the benefit of that's twofold. One, you actually have fewer people who feel obliged to drive their cars. I don't know anyone who commutes to work, you know, point A in the morning to point B, and then point B to point A in the afternoon, who wouldn't prefer to do that, you know, chauffeur driven by a bloke in a, or a woman in a uniform, on the bus, the train, or the tram. I mean, no one goes out of their way to be a point A to point B, you know, daily, 5-day-a-week commuter. It's an awful way to get to work. But when it's your only alternative, then you know, so that's in essence, that's the solution. Better public transport, take away the need for people to be using their cars, and give us all the money that we're wasting on this road for public transport infrastructure.